Awesome. Well, welcome everyone to the second live podcast recording of the Pathways to Success. So when I first started this podcast, it truly was a passion project. And for me, it actually came from a place of frustration in my career. So for the past 12 years, I'd actually been working a corporate career at the same time being very entrepreneurial. And I've done so many different things like real estate and network marketing and internet business. And they were all great experiences, but I never achieved any kind of great success with any of them. And around 2016, I really wanted to change my approach to entrepreneurship. So instead of making success metrics or money as the focus, I really wanted to do something that I loved. And something that I really enjoyed was having interesting conversations with people I found were interesting, because I knew value was being created in the form of advice, specialized knowledge, and even entertainment. So I figured, why not capture these conversations and share them with other people? That was March of 2016, and this podcast has truly changed my life. And really what I started to see is that this was like the #1 personal development tool I've ever experienced. Having a platform gave me a reason to connect with and learn from extraordinary people. And I'm so humbled that I had the opportunity to share these conversations, not just through the medium of podcasting or video, but also in these live experiences. And that's why I'm so grateful for all of your attendance and everyone on the live stream as well. So thank you all for being here. And before we jump into the meat of the conversation, I wanted to talk just a little bit about City Central. So as many of you know, I left the corporate world forever March of 2019. Thank you very much. And it was very important for me to find office space, yes. But not only did I want office space, but I wanted to be part of a community. If there's something that I have learned as being an entrepreneur, it's like your net worth truly is your network. I mean, Jason Croft, video marketing strategist, without him, I would not have a podcast. Erin Smith, another amazing entrepreneur and host of Innovation Calling, she was also on my podcast. I learned from her as well. Aaron Potachin, I spoke at Disrupt HR. He runs the event. So it's like we all are sort of facing in the same direction. And I really believe in the slogan at City Central, which is connect, collaborate, and thrive. So I'd like to bring up Christy just to talk a little bit more about City Central and what people can gain as far as being part of the community here. Give it up for Christy.
Thank you so much, Julian. As he said, my name is Christy. I'm the center manager for our Plano location. I'm so glad that you guys are here, but we were really excited to have Julian start here. Like he said, our slogan is connect, collaborate, and thrive, and we sincerely mean that. As people are touring us, we're also trying to learn from them and seeing how they can add to the community. So when we actually met Julian, we said, you know what, we have to have him here. He will add so much to our community, and he really has. He's already met with so many people, and he's helped gain, not just for his net worth, but that he's helped so many other people gain that net worth. Erin and Sia are here as well, and it just goes to show how great of a community we've built here. So if there's anything you're looking for, office space, or even just a community to come hang out in, please come by. My name is Christy, and I can answer any questions you might have.
So our featured guest is actually someone I met with at TalentNet back in, I think it was January now, and I felt like I had an instant connection with her, and I feel like I have an instant connection with anyone who has a very strong entrepreneurial spirit, and I'm very excited to introduce our featured guest to you now. Julie Hubert is the CEO and co-founder of Workland, a growing Montreal-based company specializing in recruitment technologies, solutions, and services. Julie holds a bachelor's degree in business from Concordia and an MBA from McGill University. Julie spent more than 12 years in corporate marketing for large companies, and in 2011 decided to leave everything behind and start her business in the field of HR and IT. Julie is very involved socially. She is the co-president of TechnoChick, a group of women presidents in the field of IT who aims at supporting women entrepreneurship and fostering social collaboration. She is also a board member of the Financing Accelerator PME, MTL, and the women's shelter La Dauphinelle, and is the co-producer of the new American entrepreneurial film series called The Social Movement. all the way from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Please welcome Julie Hubert.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is that one live?
I don't think so. Are you hearing me? Let's try another one.
Here we go. Let's go try this one.
Hello.
There
There you
we
go.
go.
Little
Awesome.
technical glitch. We know that in IT, it always happens.
So I want to give a shout out especially to Craig Fisher, if you're watching on the live stream, founder of TalentNet. It was because of these events that allowed us to connect and also create this collaboration. So shout out to Craig.
Yes. Hi, Craig. Thank you again for permitting this to be live tonight.
So Julie, let's get to know you a little bit in terms of like what you're doing today. Give us a little bit of a brief overview as far as what Workland is.
So Worklan is a company specializing in development of HR technologies. So our approach is a little bit unique as we start really from the problem, so the challenge that the company has, and then we architect the solution. So we pull together technologies, sometimes we'll be developing, and in the end to solve the problem, sometimes we're automating, sometimes we're using AI, sometimes it's about digital marketing. The reason that we exist is really to bring those solutions because obviously in the new landscape it is very, very hard to recruit. We're in a talent shortage. There's challenges everywhere and we're there to solve them through technologies.
Love it. Awesome. So, well, Julie, one of the big headlines about this is how you sort of escaped and reinvented the matrix. And honestly, that was one of the things that connected us both because we were both employees, but we had this desire to give more and to create more. So tell us a little bit about what life was like before Workland.
Well, actually, I like my story. I think I have a hard story. It wasn't easy, and I think it always interests people to know, where it came from. And so I've always known that I was going to be an entrepreneur. It's funny, I was probably 5 or 6, and I liked hearing people talk about business. I wanted to be a president. I don't know, it just came out of nowhere, and I was lucky to be raised by 2 entrepreneurs. So my mother, my father were entrepreneurs. I saw them suffer financially very, very much. But what I retained is the freedom that they could go pick up their kids, they could, design their life, and I really like that. But we're 4 siblings, and I'm the only crazy person who decided to go in business. The other ones would never do it just because they saw the hard side and didn't see the same things as I saw. So I was raised in that environment, and I think, I always knew it was there, and the defining moment, I guess the activator or the fuel behind my transition was that very early in life. So I had my daughter while I was 17, and it just changed my life. And going through that experience, being not only a single mother, but a single teenage mother. My parents had gone bankrupt just a little bit before. They had lost everything, and I knew they couldn't help me. The father left. So basically, I was left out on my own, and it just created some strength that I think if I would not have gone through it, it wouldn't have ended up the same. And it's really in that moment that I decided, not only for me, but for my daughter, that I wanted to prove that the impossible was possible, that, I was gonna go back to school, I was gonna study, and, one day I would have my company, I would be able to create something and have an impact on the world. So, and again, it came from that moment, and it kind of grew from there. So obviously it wasn't easy. So for almost 15 years, I studied part-time and worked full-time, which is great because I got to get some really good experiences studying business and working in marketing. And as you mentioned, after having done everything, I was dealing with big brands and doing some really cool things in marketing. I found my entrepreneur, calling came back to get me, and that's where I'm here today, in a completely different life.
So what was that transition like? I think you mentioned like there was a tipping point when you were like, hey, I'm burning my bridges, I'm going to do that. What was that day? What was that realization?
It came actually, being entrepreneur, so a little bit of a rebel mind, didn't like authority, didn't like being confined in small spaces. So all throughout my career, I had these 3-year stays. So after 2-3 years, I would get an itch and to leave, to get out of the box. And what I didn't realize, it was really because I wasn't in the right box. I wasn't in the right place, because what I needed to do was to be in business for myself. And going back to that dream that I had, way back, I was kind of ignoring that and continuing to job hop from one company to another. And magic happens. So one day I end up in a company that I love, a great company. I like my job, but the culture just didn't fit with me. I didn't get along with my boss at the time at all. And so, I just started looking for an escape. And when I talk about the matrix, that's what I talk about. It's like you're in a matrix, and then you want out. You want to redefine your life. And that's what I did in this specific company. And, I went looking for a job like I always did, like people do, and I just got stuck in the process. I did interviews and sent a bunch of CVs, spent too much time with the wrong companies, and I just grew so frustrated to be stuck in the system. And at the same time, I saw other people were stuck in the matrix, and I'm like, what is wrong with the world? We need to be able to escape to get to that place. And that's really when I realized, oh my God, I'm in my entrepreneurial idea. I'm living my future. And it was like a haha moment, hit by lightning. And that's where the transition for me started, and that I really started working concretely on finding a way through technology to automate that matchmaking process, which for me was, giving freedom to people like me that were stuck in the matrix.
Interesting. Okay, so that's where I was curious, because you had this marketing background, but your business is technology, and you don't necessarily have a tech background or HR background either. So this almost feels like you created something to solve your own need. Is that right?
I created a company for people like me, and yes, it was absolutely crazy. So, 12 years in marketing, and it wasn't about marketing or HR or technology. It was about, I found a problem that I could be really passionate about, and that I didn't know how I would do it, but I would find a way to solve it. And at the beginning, when I started talking to people about the idea, everybody thought I was crazy. They're like, what are you doing? You have no experience in either HR or IT. How are you going to do it? They would ask me a bunch of questions, and I didn't care. I knew the vision was so clear that I didn't care. I didn't care. I would find a way. I would find the right people. I would find the answers. And retrospectively, when I look at what we have today and the elaborate technologies that we develop and the fact that we use AI, and I'm like, this is crazy when, in hindsight of everything. But at that moment, again, I was so passionate about solving the problem, and it just, HR and technology was the means of how to solve the problem.
And that was 2011.
Yes,
is that right?
That's correct.
So what is the status of the business now, and what is your vision for Worklane?
The vision, again, it's really to solve the issue of the matching problem. So still today, whether it's me or you, if we want to connect with the right company that's perfect for you or I, it's impossible. I can't. What is the likelihood that I'm looking for a job and that the perfect company ends up posting somewhere and I see it and I apply and the HR manager sees it, et cetera, et cetera? The matching process is so complex. The recruitment equation is getting more complex. So for us, it's again continuing to try to find ways to solve the issue, to be able to retire one day when I am able to execute what I would have wanted to have in 2010 when I was trying to get out of my current job. It's really that at any point in time, you're able to connect efficiently with the right place. And be able to allow the talent to flow better, because whether it's for candidates who are unhappy in their jobs or even employers to have employees that are not happy, it's not a win-win. But if it takes you a year to find someone to replace someone, you don't want to lose the talent, even if it's the wrong talent and the people aren't engaged. So that's really the vision. It's continuing exactly the mission and the vision that I dreamed up, several years ago, and using the best technologies to be able to get there.
I love it. And I think this conversation is very relevant, especially to even the people that I'm looking at in this room right now. You know, my background is in recruitment, and I've experienced so many times in helping people through transition. You know, Erin and also Sia, they have a podcast where they talk about talent and also the future of work. My girlfriend Rosie works in staffing and high-level management consulting, right? So it's all about people in the future of work. But it seems like your business and what you do has given you insights into what that future is. So tell us, what is the future of HR, recruitment, and work?
It's really exciting. First of all, I know for the people that are practitioners in talent acquisition recruitment, it's not easy. I can't say it's fun actually, because the industry is going through a digital revolution, and it's fairly recent. So when I was out there selling matching technologies and algorithms, no one was talking about AI in 2012 and 13 when I started selling my technology. Nobody wanted to hear about technology, just because human resources, it's based on human interactions, and the recruitment equation hadn't really changed. So really, I would say in the last 18 months for some of the more advanced companies, but a lot of companies are actually taking this shift now. At the same time, because there's challenges in recruitment, there's millions and millions of dollars going into the startup ecosystem, and you have these thousands of companies trying to find solutions, and they're coming at people that have just started transforming. So short term, it is very, very messy. It's uncomfortable. The whole profession is brought to change, but the future is good because I think the recruiter's work is going to be a whole lot more interesting, because automation, AI, is going to start doing a lot of the transactional stuff, the repetitive work, a portion of the analytics, which is hard to go get, whereby the recruiter will focus more on the human side of recruitment, which there's a portion, I'm sorry, it can never be replaced, fully by machine. And on the flip side, I think for candidates, it will become much easier to find the company, because even today, it's horrible looking for a job. It's horrible. Like, I've not yet met a person who said, I love looking for a job. It's horrible because, you're out there, and yes, there's technologies, but they're a lot more oriented towards companies, and that's where we want to find the balance. We want to help both sides, because if we help both sides will be winners. So I think a lot of change to come, and it's going to be completely different. So companies that are a little bit uncomfortable with the technologies, uncomfortable taking risks, because it is risky, because everything's new, they won't have a choice, because there's just so much technologies coming out. And at the same time, the talent, is hard to find. So, we can need to come up with solutions. And there's just some industries that, whether or not they want the change, it's going to happen. And for sure, HR, it will, but to the benefit of absolutely everybody.
So I'm kind of one of those recruiters that loves the human element side of it. So as this state of AI and also technology for recruitment purposes, what is it good at today, and what is it not so good at?
Yes, so there's lots of applications based on AI that are up and coming. We're still at what I would say ground zero in terms of the applications to HR, and again, why it may be lagging behind other industries that are a little bit more advanced, like all the manufacturing, lots of cool robotics, automation going on there. It's because it just started to transform. So it took some time for that industry to be ready, so there's a little bit of lag time. In terms of what works today, so there's applications where the AI will help to find candidates. There's no miracle solution. There's no technology who's able to automatically find the perfect match instantly every single time, but there are technologies that can help automate a lot of the searching. I think where the most advances have been seen, it's on the matching side. So collecting data from each side and being able to, make matches. And that's actually, we work a lot of our technology is based on that matching and finding the parameters that count on both sides, and just automating, putting together the people that should talk. And again, I go back and say, in 2010, when I was looking, I was in wrong companies at the wrong time with the wrong jobs, and all the parameters weren't validated. So I think AI does a really good job for that. A lot of AI-based analytics to be able to extrapolate, data. And there's actually some very new cool technologies that bring new types of information to companies. So some are a little bit more scary than others. One example would be, the facial recognition. So there's these intelligent softwares where, candidates will take, interviews online, and then the technology is able to say if the person's lying or not. Now, there's a whole ethical thing behind that that I'm not going to get into because it's not my core expertise. But, those types of applications are going to be coming out more and more. But again, we're at ground zero because the AI is not, intelligent enough to be able to better itself. It's starting, but because you need data to have machine learning, and because the transformation's coming, so, we're starting to get into smarter technologies, but I think there's a lot of pain points of the recruiters and the candidates that are solved with the actual technologies that are out there.
So as you may know, more than half of my social following, they're all recruiters, right? So what should recruiters be doing now to prepare themselves for this inevitable transformation?
They have to educate themselves ongoing and to try things. And I think one expression that I like is, you don't get fired for choosing IBM, and IBM is a wonderful company, and they do wonderful things. But, large corporations, it's harder, it's longer for them to really disrupt in terms of innovation. So a lot of the cool things, the disrupting technologies, things that are going to really solve in disrupting ways are in the ecosystem of startups or up-and-coming companies. So recruiters need to be comfortable with testing new things, going to maybe smaller companies that they're used to and trying it. It's not about eating the elephant, as I say, it's testing things. Again, the space has changed, the game has changed, and because we're in a talent shortage, it's a candidate market, and candidates are scattered digitally all over. You need to be able to try stuff and to know that, perhaps you'll fail, but, the whole startup world is based on A/B testing. I say, try things, and when you see that something works, then you start investing more. But definitely, we need to put, steps forward because, the industry is going to force it anyways, so why not get a head start on it and invest today?
Love it. So along the lines of talent and also looking at the workforce, something that I know that you're passionate about speaking on is the importance of attracting more women into STEM. Why is this important?
Oh, that's a lovely topic. I love to talk about that. So first of all, just interestingly enough, before another conference I did, I Googled famous women in STEM, something like that, just to see what would come out. And, oddly enough, a third of the pictures were actually drawings and paintings because those women, it was so long ago, there wasn't any photography. There was a third that were black and white pictures because, photography was just starting. And the balance were women that are probably between 60 and 70 or 80 today. There were models, but there wasn't a lot. And so there's room to grow in that field. I think, what I can bring to the equation is that it is possible, no matter where we start, whether we are in STEM or not, whether we work in IT, it is possible to jump in. But, we are entering the digital era. We're working on technologies right now that are going to transform the world. And there's hundreds of thousands, probably, startups working on all sorts of stuff that will really, in 10 years, completely change the world. And, women can't, be sidetracked and not get into the jobs of tomorrow, the high-paid jobs, the strategic jobs, and be left behind in jobs that are potentially going to be automated, and then they'll have to reinvent themselves, but, maybe not in the way that they would like. So women have got to go into it more and more and find, whether it's to be coding or programming or doing like me, managing, I think it's the world. It's a great opportunity to change the world, to design it, and also being a woman in IT and business, I think women and men develop businesses differently. And I think men can do great things, but I also think that women can develop amazing business models. And because, in our biology, we're we take care of people, we want to make sure everybody's okay. I think a lot of the businesses developed by women just are conscious of how do I give back to the world? How do I, take care of my employees? And these are the types of companies that a lot of the younger generations are going to look for. So again, we need to be part of the equation of creating tomorrow's world. So it's not only, a world of technology developed by men for men. There needs to be a balance, and there needs to be much more women interested in the field.
What do you think the hesitation is? Because I've recruited hundreds of software engineers, right? They are overwhelmingly men. I'd say 90% of every engineer I've hired is a guy. What do you think the hesitation is, or issue there might be?
I think it's just about, the promotion, because it starts at the school, right? So if you don't see a lot of women in certain fields, like, there was a beginning to engineering where there was, 1, 2, 10 women, even in the medical field, if you go back, far enough, you'll see that there was, not a lot of women, but when they started coming in, So it's about promoting that very early on, but also to remove the biases that, programmers, it's a man's world. Well, it still is a lot of a man's world, but, it's possible to be a woman and to be in that world. And, I've never felt like I was in the wrong place just because sometimes in a room of 1,000 people, there was 3 women. I actually say, hey, I have an opportunity to be a leader and to inspire more people to want to see it. So it's about, some biases that I think are just going to naturally disappear, encouraging women, having different support groups to be able to allow women to go in there. And on the flip side, companies also need to adjust. So if you have a corporate culture where your programmers are working, 15-hour days, I think you need to have balance and consider women will maybe be in charge of taking care of the kids. You have to have that flexibility. But, men also want that in many cases. So I think the adjustment is going to have to be, occurring anyways.
So what kind of advice, whether to our audience or perhaps someone watching the live stream right now, what kind of inspiration or what are the benefits do you think women would experience by choosing a STEM career, whether you're an employee or an entrepreneur?
Because you have the ability to create the world of tomorrow, and the world of tomorrow is going to be the world we live in. It's going to be the world where our kids live in, and we need to be there to be able to shape it. And again, I think when there's not a lot of people in a certain field, when you enter it early enough, it's very exciting because you actually know that you're paving the way for other women behind. And again, I think there's some very smart women that have stayed in the dark, that have done things, in the STEM front, that have changed the world. So some of the answers to the problems we have may be only be able to brought to life by women. And personally, I find that's very, very exciting. And again, if in a more logical way, it's the jobs of tomorrow. That's where the money's going to be. That's where a lot of the strategic and a lot of the fun's going to occur. So I mean, it's all positive things waiting for women that are interested in making the leap.
I love it. Julie, I want to shift gears to a topic that we're all very passionate about, which is entrepreneurship. So just so we can start from the same baseline of definitions, how do you define what entrepreneurship is?
Entrepreneurship is being a little crazy, I would say, to start it off with. It's being in control of the matrix. So and that's just my definition of it. So when you're creating something, you're innovating, you're doing something that nobody has done before. You're realizing your power to actually shift a future that if you're not awake to that possibility, you're just going to be going completely somewhere else. So entrepreneurship, again, is about creating. It's about redefining a future that has the ability to change the lives of people. It's very exciting, but it's definitely, as we talked previously, everybody can do it, but it's not made for everybody. Because again, you do need to be a little crazy. You need to be so visionary that even if 1,000 people tell you that you're crazy, you're still going to do it. So it requires certain mindsets, certain skills to be able to survive the experience and take your project to the end. But definitely, again, redesigning a future that involves a lot of people.
So I think a lot of times my journey has been about self-awareness. I had these characteristics and attributes, but I never really manifested in entrepreneurship, right? So help our audience figure out, let's say if they are in the matrix, right? So fill in the blank for this question. You might be an entrepreneur
if you get frustrated with the status quo, if somebody tells you this is how it is and you think it doesn't make sense, that you just don't accept it and it bugs you and you either say it or you don't, but if you don't, it just starts rumbling inside you. So definitely that's one thing. I think it's to be crazy enough to always be searching to make yourself uncomfortable. So I always say, everything you want in life is on the other side of your comfort zone. And, as soon as I started, especially in the corporate world, you get comfortable, the first year, you're like, yay, this is cool. And then you just kind of fall in like a work coma. And then you wake up and you're like, where have I been? Kind of like when you're driving. And you're driving and you're like, who was driving for the last 10 minutes, Well, we do that in jobs. And for me, I felt that in corporate jobs. So, I always had a wake-up mechanism where I just created uncomfort for myself, and it just took me somewhere else. So when you live the life of an entrepreneur, your uncomfort is all the time. It's activated, and when you think, you've seen it all, you're going to see more. So you always pushing yourself, and sometimes you actually want to fall asleep and just say, can I just fall asleep for one day? But, you're awake all the time, and I think, people are not all ready to assume the weight of that and all the risks associated. You have to be, there's the statistics show that, 80% of companies will fail before year 5. That's huge, So a part of you has to be ready to face that. So should you come to the end of the road for your company, you have to be strong enough to say, I'm going to figure out a way, or I'm going to accept it. And that is very, very hard to humanly take. And I don't think it's made for everybody, but absolutely everybody can do it if that's what they're made for and if that's what they wish.
So let's say someone who is listening to the podcast right now is stuck in the matrix and they are sold on the benefits of being an entrepreneur and starting their own business. But let's say they don't have clarity as far as the kind of business that they want to start. What's one step that they could take to start to gain clarity?
So for me, all through my corporate years, I still had a little itch of entrepreneurship. So what I would do is I would start these business plans. So I would get an idea, start a business plan, and then it would kind of dwindle. I saw that, 6 weeks after I wasn't working on it, and then I would kind of hop idea from idea to idea. And so at the when I started with Workland, it was completely different. It was more like I was struck by lightning and the idea never left. But to start off with, I didn't know where to go. Where do I go? Where do I start? So in hindsight, I think people have to start, and that's again my humble opinion, with the problem. What do you want to solve? But that problem you have to be passionate about. So no, I wasn't in HR tech, but I was passionate about being great in my career. I was passionate about helping people escape the matrix and figure out where they're the best at. So start with the problem, connect with a passion, because if you don't have the passion, it will be too hard and it'll kind of dwindle like those first plans that I worked on. And then what I would also recommend, it's a simple exercise. Do a little business canvas. It takes, 1 or 2 days. And you see if you're able to take that problem, that idea, and build a business around it. Because, if you have a great idea, but you're not able to make money, well, you don't have a business concept. And after that, it's putting one foot in front of the other. I went, especially in the beginning of my career, I wanted somebody to tell me what to do, tell me where to go, what should I do, how do I make it work? And I figured out that there's no path when you're innovating. There's no path when you're doing something that nobody's done. You just have to put one foot in front of the other, and when you're driven by a vision that you hold very dear, it just seems like all the elements of the matrix come to help you. You meet the right people at the right time, and you're kind of scared sometimes because you're like, oh wow, how's this all happening? But it doesn't mean that you don't face challenges that will test you to the core. But again, it's about putting a foot in front of the other and continuing no matter what.
Well, Julie, I want to close with one final topic, and it is this idea about designing your life. And the reason why I like this topic is because I think a lot of times people just accept the lot that they have, and they're sort of reacting to circumstances. So first, let me ask you this. Is it possible to design your life?
It is very possible, and it's not only possible, I think it's a must. So again, if I connect back to my personal story, you know, when I go back to when I'm 17, I was on the path to a completely different life than I have right now, right? Because I chose to say, this is not what I want. This is what I want, and I'm gonna make sure that I design the vision of my life to get there. So, and I think a parallel that I always use is in business. You know, we have business plans, we do strategic plans, so we look at what's going on, we set objectives, what's the strategies to get there, what's the tactics. It seems, you know, you can't run a business without a plan. But we don't do that in our lives. We don't do that in our lives, but, you know, businesses are great, but, you know, we should be our priority, because if you're not setting a direction, then you're floating like a little bottle and you're just gonna end up somewhere. So you need to take the time to design it, and as crazy, again, I think the example of my life, it was pretty crazy when I envisioned it, and today it's a reality, and it is possible, but you need to take that time and then make sure that you commit to specific actions ongoingly to be able to get to the end result of that design.
I love it. So for our audience in attendance, I have one or two more questions. So I want you to start thinking about what you might want to ask Julie. The reason why I love these live experiences, honestly, it's not even about us, it's about you. And for me, whenever I try to, the best way for me to learn how to do something is to find someone who's created that result. And if you're here today, you're looking to produce some kind of result in your life, whether it's to start a business or exceed in some aspect or another. So start to think through the questions that you want to ask. So, Julie, what's one step someone can do to begin the design of their life?
I always, I've done this since I was 20. So every time, every year, same time, same place, I escape into a place where I'm feeling, you know, very zen. So whether it's in like south or just, you know, in a log cabin, depends on how I feel. And I really set the vision of what I want. So what do I want to achieve, okay? And I do this for like a 20-year time frame. This is what I want. And then I bring back concrete objectives. This is what I'm going to do this year. And these are the components that I want to appear in my life during the year. All throughout the year, every couple months, I'll pull out my plan, say, oh, you're on target, you're not. And do I achieve absolutely everything I put in my plan? No, but crazily enough, I achieve a lot. And sometimes it's even scary, and there's one thing that I really wanted. I asked for it, I put it down on paper when I was 20, something pretty much out of this world, and dot on, the 20th year, that happened, and I'm like, this is crazy. And again, in the shoes of who I was when I was 17 and 20, it was crazy dream, but you know, if you don't envision it, you know, at some point in time, then how can you expect it to happen?
Julie, this podcast is called The Pathways to Success. How do you personally define success?
I think success, you know, in my own definition, is being able to find happiness. And ultimate happiness comes when you're able to achieve your life mission. And to be able to achieve your life mission, you need to you know, really introspect, determine what it is, and then push yourself to continuously, you know, go beyond what you think is possible. Again, the uncomfortable zone, and that's where the magic happens. Because I know a lot of people, and they have the happiness problem, but in a different way. So, you know, work's good, life's good, everything's good, but they have a void. But when you pursue a mission that's bigger than yourself, when you pursue a dream that's so impossible that you know, people, find that you're crazy to be, seeking that, with the benefits you get on that journey, for me, that is success. It's being able to pursue no matter what, to accomplish your dreams, and ultimately, when we accomplish ourselves, that's where we find, in my opinion, true happiness.
And it seems like your definition of success very much is happiness, right? So I'm going to ask you sort of a very impossible question, but I'm going to do it anyway. Let's say happiness is the ultimate outcome. If you could boil it down into 3 chronological steps to find and create happiness, what would those 3 steps be?
I think first it's what. It's very simple what I'm going to say. It's the what. What do you want? And I could ask you that, you would answer me, different responses. But if I would dig deep enough and go layers below, I would probably find different information that's kind of, packaged, deeper within. So it's about finding what you want, and then more importantly, why do you want it? So, when I was 17, I said, I want to change the world. Why? Well, because I can. I just felt like my why was that I was given this opportunity, and I just had to do it. Like, life gave me a mission, and I was there to accomplish it. And then once you've determined that, then it's about, confirming, okay, how do I do it? And setting up timeframes. It seems very simple. We do it for business, but we don't do it for our lives. And I think the answers lie in that simple equation.
That's so perfect. What, why, and then how. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Julie Hubert.
Thank you.
Who has the first question? Erin. Erin Podichin,
Yes.
Tell us who you are and what you do, man.
Hey, Erin Podichin. I help companies with their 401k plan, so call me for that. So my question for you is, I've got a daughter that's 10, very spunky, full of life. What advice would you have for a 10-year-old female, or girl, she's not a female yet, female, on how to follow their passion and become an entrepreneur? What would you say they should start working on now, and what traits do you think I could start building into her to help her down that path?
So I think, first of all, it's really, as a parent, we want the best for our kids, right? My daughter today is 23, and I kind of saw her, through school and introspecting into what she wanted. It's about, some kids are made to be entrepreneurs, and some wouldn't be happy. They'll be either uncomfortable, it's not their profile. It's really, as a parent, giving the child the latitude to switch. But while, most of us were raised, hey, you go to school, you become an employee, you have a good job, you stay there as long as possible, you make money, you grow, that's it, and you retire, right? So there's the whole new model of entrepreneurship is fairly recent, because even when I started, being an entrepreneur sometimes meant you were like unemployed and you were like a consultant. So, it's much evolved. It's much cooler today to say you're an entrepreneur. So if you see the characteristics in your daughter, it's about exposing, in very, very small steps. So one of the things I did with my daughter when she was probably 10 or 11, she liked animals, so I said, you know what, I'm gonna help you do little flyers, and you're gonna go around the block so that you can go walk people's dogs, and it'll be your own little business. So she did it, and she had her experiences, and but it didn't come towards her until later, and it really, today my daughter wants to be an entrepreneur, but because she came to work with me, and that's where she's like, wow, I showed her another way to do things. So the more we expose them into the possibility of either working for someone, and that's totally fine, but also to be able to be empowered, to expose to models that have done it before, little experiences, I think it comes, that's probably the fastest and best way to do it.
Awesome. Thanks, Julie. Anyone else? Jason Croft. Jason, tell us who you are. My man.
How's it going?
I've said this so many times already, but I want to permanently capture this on content.
Uh-oh.
Without Jason Croft, I wouldn't have a podcast, I wouldn't be sponsored, I wouldn't be signed by a talent agency, I wouldn't be a keynote speaker, and I sure as hell wouldn't have built a consulting company which set me financially free from having a job. Thank you, Jason Croft.
Thank you, Jason.
Well, I appreciate those kind words, Julian. Jason Croft, B2B Media, got a couple shows as well. Tell me, I'm just really curious about Workland. Like, what's the business model? What do you actually do with the company?
Yeah. So we, again, developed a system that really automates a maximum of the process to recruit the right candidates. So, we use technology to find candidates on the network. So the system gives the ability to do local searches, national and international searches. And then afterwards, after all these massive digital campaigns, then we use AI to really facilitate the matching. So we really reproduce the decision-making model of the recruiter as he or she would be looking at a CV, making all sorts of decisions, yes, no, introducing, of course, subjectivity when you have a human looking at it, a mass of information. So we automate that process to make sure the recruiter and the candidates end up connecting more efficiently, and all the parties know, what the compatibility and probability that, it will work out is there. We don't only look at competency, but also, all the psychometrics. So we're able to match on the person, the personality, the aspiration. So we did really try to collect as much data, again, so that both parties that start a potential relationship are coming into the equation with more information. And the system is really there to help the recruiter automate everything that's boring so that they really can focus on the human side of recruitment. So, we're continually evolving, we're continually adding different functionalities. Our goal is to find the perfect candidate as fast as possible, as efficiently as possible. And to answer in terms of business model, so we sell licenses of our system to companies. And of course, it's never charged to candidates. It will and be forever for free. And we really apply this technology to solve the issues of companies. So, we have different types of companies using the system in a different way. The goal is really to adapt to an internal reality and help solve the problem.
Erin? Who are Erin? What do you do?
That's a loaded question, but Erin Gregor, I do some consulting, I do events, but we're part of the podcast studio up here. I'd love to know some of your challenges for you not having a tech background but starting a tech business. What were some of the big challenges that you had to overcome in being in that new position?
I would say it was pretty much early stage. So in the beginning, it was really hard because I actually had in the first year to ask someone very discreetly, can you explain to me what programming does? So it's when you go, it's not impossible to go into a field that you've never done before, but the learning curve is going to be there. So in the early stages of my company, I did do some rookie mistakes. So things, if I would have had a tech background, I wouldn't have done those errors, but because we chose to be bootstrapped, all the errors I made were small errors. But if I would have had these huge budgets and lacked kind of that depth of knowledge of the industry, it would have maybe been a little bit more interesting, let's just say. So I think it's really, that's the early stage. What's most important is to surround yourself with the right people. So right now, I really focus my work on seeing the future, envisioning the end result, finding the clients that have that need, but I have people internally who are able to take that need, that idea, and translate it, execute it, and make it realizable. So again, it's about having the right people around the table as fast as possible.
Anyone else?
Hi, good evening. My name is Marcus Cobb. I'm the proud owner of Cobb Industries and the host of Dallas Means Business. And one of the questions I want to ask is, it could be also a question for you. In today's business world, do you see the traditional resume sending and everything vanishing, or do you see it enhancing with all the new technology that's coming out and HR really enhancing? Do you see that going away, or do you see it rapidly changing?
I think right now there's a lot of cool technologies that are automating a lot of this like CV searches. Pretty cool stuff going on. So I think short term, it's just going to become more efficient. What I don't like is even me, my CV, let's say has 2 pages. I don't like saying that my whole, 20 some years of experience I can put on 2 single pages. I'm from the recruitment space, so I'm good at doing CVs, but not everybody's good at putting the perfect keywords and the perfect structure on paper. So I envision that, maybe in 10 years, maybe before that, that there will no longer be CVs, but I think there's a whole transition that will go towards it. Again, I think, collecting data, up-to-date data from candidates and collecting the same data from the employer, I think it's much more efficient than, resuming your life on a single page.
Were you asking from a candidate perspective or from a company perspective?
From a company's perspective. You can also say from my perspective, because I just really see that with a lot of young companies, especially millennial companies, they just really want to get to know the person. They just really want to get to know what they can do for them now. It's not so much coming into the door with this X amount of experience and X amount of things that you have done in the past. It's what can you possibly take my company to the next level in the future. So it's not so much what I've done on paper, but it's what can I do for you now. And I think a lot of that is going to really play a part coming in the future. So that's the kind of the question I'm coming at.
Maybe if I can add, I really think, again, a paper is a static view. You don't see the personality of the person. You don't see if there's a cultural fit. You don't see the person's aspiration. It's almost like it's staged information that's made to be, in the ideal world, all perfect. Again, when you're collecting live data from candidates, whether it's, even if it's through technology like chatbots that collect information, I think there's a lot more power behind collecting those data from different perspectives than the CV. But for the foreseeable future, I think the snapshot is going to continue to exist. But AI definitely has the potential to replace that in the years to come.
Jason?
So kind of on both sides of that process for the candidate, how can they optimize right now for the bots, for the AI and stuff like that to really stand out even more? And then kind of on the opposite side, once they're sitting they've made it to the chair sitting across from that person, is, how much does building their personal brand or anything like that come into play outside of just the CV?
Well, I think, right now, most of the companies are using technologies to parse CVs most efficiently. So for sure, taking some time to do the CV, have all the cute keywords that represent, who you are, is important, because a lot of the technologies are making the matches based on if you have the right words in your CV. So very, very key. But I think even more important than that is that candidates need to really work on their brand, because, information is out there and it's there to stay. And, I think especially the younger generations, they don't realize that, your employers are looking, potential employers are looking on your Facebook, and, everything we do can be interpreted. So if I'm on LinkedIn and I like an article that's a little bit radical or extremist, people can deduct an information, and through AI there's going to be companies that are going to take all this data, these interactions that I've done, pictures that I've posted, messages, and say, this is what we think Julie is. And that's probably, it's a little scary, but it's probably not too far from the future. So if there's these intelligent aggregators taking all that, again, like the facial recognition, saying, oh, because her face moves, she's lying. we need to be careful, and again, to set up the future and to make sure we're not doing things today that can affect us, in a way we wouldn't want in the future. Designing your life, absolutely, absolutely.
Awesome. Leo? Okay. Anyone else? All right. Well, Julie, I think that's it. Tell our live audience, our viewers, where can people connect with you, follow you? Tell us all that.
Yes, they can definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. I love, connecting with people. I'm always there to help, especially entrepreneurs that kind of need a little push off the hill. I tell people, don't come to me if you don't want to fall off the hill, because I'll push you over, because, I like inspiring people towards their dreams, towards, where they're going. So please feel free to connect with me, and it'll be my pleasure to help you if I can.
Awesome. Well, Julie, thank you so much for doing this. It's been a
Thank
pleasure
you.
for you to come all the way out from Canada for this. Thank you to our live audience. Thank you to our live stream. As always, make sure to subscribe, comment, and share, and we'll see you next time on the next episode of the Pathways to Success.
Thank you, Julian.